Today we are going to learn how to make rotations on a coordinate plane. You should be on page 28 in your notes packet. A rotation is a transformation that turns a figure around a given point. Rotations create congruent figures so they are the same shape and size. When figures are rotated, they change orientation so their position will be different unless they are rotated 360 degrees. If they rotate 360 degrees, they will be back in their original position. There are formulas for each of our rotations. So the formula for a 90 degrees clockwise rotation about the origin is that XY will flip so that Y comes first, and then X changes to the opposite. So for example, if I had a point that was located at 2, 5, then it would become Y would move to the front, so 5 would move to the front, and X would change to the opposite, so 2 would change to -2, and it would be my Y value. Now, this formula can also be used for a 270 degrees counterclockwise rotation, because it's important to remember that 90 degrees clockwise is the same as 270 degrees counterclockwise. Where would the following points be after a 90-degree clockwise rotation about the origin? So remember, our pre-image is always our X and Y. If we're doing a 90-degree clockwise rotation, then it's going to be Y opposite of X. Well, the first thing I can do is graph each of my points. So I want to put triangle ABC on my coordinate plane. If A is located at 3, -5, I always start at my origin. 3 as an X value means I would move right 3. -5 as a Y value means I would move down 5. So here is A. If B is located at -4, 7, then I would start here. Always start at the origin. -4 for an X value means left 4. 7 for a Y value means up 7. So here is B. C is located at -2, -2. So C starts left 2 and then also down 2. Now, the image of these, we are going to change them. So let's see where they would be. For point A, I need to move it so that my Y value moves to my X position. So since my Y value is -5, it's going to remain -5. So remember, just because Y in my rule doesn't say -Y, all that means is that that number stays exactly the same. So if the number was negative, it remains negative. Our X value has to change positions with Y, and it has to change to its opposite. So since X was 3, it needs to change to its opposite, which is -3. So we can see if this would work. So remember, we're doing a clockwise rotation, so that's this direction. Each quadrant represents 90 degrees. So if I'm moving A 90 degrees clockwise, then it should change from quadrant 4 over to quadrant 3. So let's see if it does. This was -5, -3. So if I started at my origin, I would move left 5 and then down 3. And this would be where A prime is located. So yes, I can see that that has rotated into quadrant 3. So that is probably correct. Now let's look at B. B was located at -4, 7, so we know if we rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, it should end up over here in quadrant 1. Well, our Y value has to flip with X, but it's going to stay the same. So our Y value was 7, so it's going to stay 7, but it's going to end up as the X value. Our X value needs to change to its opposite, so our X value was -4, so now it's going to be +4. Now let's put this on our coordinate plane and see if that works. So 7, 4 means I would go right 7, and then I would go up 4. And B prime would be located right here. Well, if I look, this does look like B was rotated 90 degrees. Finally, I have C, which is at -2, -2. Well, my Y value is this -2, and it stays the same, but it's just going to the X position. My X value has to change to its opposite. So my X value was -2, so now it's going to be +2. Well, to get from that to that point, I would start at my origin. -2 would be left 2, and then +2 would be up 2, and this would be C prime. And so if C started here, I can see it would have rotated 90 degrees to get over to quadrant 2. Now, a 180 degrees clockwise rotation is actually the easiest rotation that we have because the X and Y don't flip positions. So X will stay first and Y will stay first. The only difference is that they both change to their opposites. So for example, if I had -6, 3, then that would become +6, -3. Now let's look at this problem. We are going to rotate these points 180 degrees about the origin. So if I start with point D, it's located at 4, 1. So that's right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1. So this would be point D. If I rotate point D 180 degrees, then that means my rule was -x, -y, which means opposite x, opposite y. So D prime is going to be located at the opposite of 4, which is -4, and the opposite of 1, which is -1. Well, this makes sense. We see that D is located in quadrant 1, so if it's rotated 180 degrees clockwise, it's going to be 90, then 180. So it should be over here in quadrant 3. Remember, that's the same as if I rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise because 180 degrees is the same either way. So I would go 90, 180, and it's still going to be somewhere over here. So -4, -1, from the origin, I would go left 4 and then down 1, and here is D prime. Now for E is located at 5, -3. So to get to E, I would move right 5, then down 3, and here is E. So to get to E prime, I'm going to need to change this so that X and Y are its opposites. So X would change from +5 to -5. Y would change from -3 to +3. So E prime would be located at -5, +3. Well, if I look at E, if I rotate it 180 degrees, then I should be 90, 180. I should be over here in quadrant 2. So let's see if that works. From the origin, if I'm going to go to -5, 3, I would move left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 1, 2, 3. And here is E prime. So it does look like E was rotated 180 degrees. Now our last one here is F, which is located at -8, 2. So to get there, I would move left 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then up 2, 1, 2. So here would be F. Well, to get to F prime, I would need to change X and Y to their opposites. So -8 would change to +8, and 2 would change to -2. Well, since F is here, if I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, then I know that it should end up down here in quadrant 4. So let's see if that works. If F goes to +8, -2, then I would be right 8, and then down 2. And I end up right here. So it does look like F was rotated 180 degrees. Now our final rotation that we're going to look at is a 270 degrees clockwise rotation. That formula does again require us to flip X and Y, and this time Y becomes its opposite and X stays whatever it was. So if I had a number that was 7, -4, then it becomes the opposite of y, so -4 becomes +4, and then whatever 7 was, or x was, which was 7. So this one would become +4, +7. Remember that a 270 degrees clockwise rotation is the same as 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now let's look at where these points would be located. So point G was at 1, 6. So I would move it right 1 and then up 6. And this is where point G would originally be located. Now remember that our formula is that we move from xy to opposite y, x. So G prime, I'm going to take my y value, which was 6, and change it to its opposite, which is -6. I'm going to take my y value of 1 and keep it, but it's going to be 1. So if I'm moving 270 degrees clockwise, that should be 90, 180, 270. So I should be right over here in quadrant 2. So let's see if that worked. If I go to -6, 1, then I would move left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then up 1, and here would be G prime. Now for H is located at +4, -1. So that would be right 4, down 1. So here is H. Now, if I'm going to rotate it 270 degrees clockwise, then I'm using this formula, opposite y, x. Well, my y was -1, so the opposite of that is +1. My x was 4, so I'm keeping that, which is 4. So H prime will be located at 1, 4. So that would be right 1, up 4. And it would end up being right here. Well, you can see if I do that, if I take H and rotate it 270 degrees, it should be back over here in quadrant 1. So that would work. And our last point for this one is I, which is at -1, -2. Well, that's left 1 and then down 2. So here is I. And now to rotate it 270 degrees, I'm going to take the opposite of y, which is -2. So the opposite of -2 is +2. And then I'm keeping x. So since x was -1, it remains -1. Now to get there, I'm going to do 2, -1. So that's right 2. And then down 1. So this would be I prime. Well, that works because if I looked at I, if I rotated it 270, it would be 90, 180, 270. So it puts me right over here in quadrant 4. Now you try the next problem. You are going to construct triangle ABC, and then you are going to rotate it 90 degrees, then 180 degrees, and then 90 degrees clockwise again. So you have to be careful here. The first thing you're doing is rotating triangle ABC. The next thing you're doing is rotating triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. So you are rotating not the original triangle that you drew, but the image of A prime, B prime, C prime. Then you are rotating A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, and that's where you are getting this last one. So right now, I want everybody to just construct triangle ABC. So for triangle ABC, A is located at -4, 4, so that's left 4, and then up 4. So here is A. B is located at 1, 2, so that's right 1, up 2. C is located at -3, -1, so that's left 3, and then down 1. So we would connect those points. And now we want to rotate this 90 degrees clockwise. Well, remember the rule for a 90-degree clockwise rotation is that xy changes to y opposite of x. So since A was originally at -4, +4, our y value will stay what it was, so it becomes the first value, which is 4, and our x value was -4, and it needs to change to its opposite. So the opposite of -4 is +4. So this is where A prime is going to be located. Now B prime, it started out as 1, 2, so our y value has to flip to the front, but it's going to stay the same number, so it's 2. Our x value needs to flip to the back, but it needs to be its opposite. So 1 will change to -1. And then our last is C prime. So our y value will flip to the front, so it's going to remain -1. Our x value will flip to the back, but it needs to flip to its opposite. -3's opposite is +3. So this is where A prime, B prime, and C prime should be located. So let's put these where they would go. If A prime is at 4, 4, then that's 4 to the right and then 4 up. So this would be A prime. B prime is 2, -1, so that would be right 2 and then down 1. And then C prime would be at -1, 3, so that's left 1, up 3. And here is C prime. Now I would connect these points. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to rotate not my original triangle. Remember, I'm rotating A prime, B prime, and C prime. So I'm taking these points and I'm rotating them 180 degrees clockwise. So remember, our rule for clockwise rotation is that XY, it stays in the same order, but both of them change to their opposite. So because I already have a prime on this sheet, I'm going to change these, and this will now be a double prime. So since A was 4, 4, they're going to again stay in their same position, but both change to their opposites. Well, the opposite of 4 is -4 for both of them. For B double prime, I see that B prime was located at 2, -1. They will stay in their same positions, but they will both change to their opposites. So the opposite of 2 is -2. The opposite of -1 is +1. And then for C double prime, C prime was at -1, 3. So it's going to become +1, -3 because they stay in the same position, but both change to their opposites. Now to graph this, A prime would be located at -4, -4, so left 4, down 4. B double prime would be at -2, 1, so that's left 2, up 1. C double prime would be at 1, -3, so that's right 1, down 3. So then I would just connect these points. So you can see that my original triangle flipped this way, and now this triangle has flipped 2 times over here. And now the last thing that we want to do is rotate this triangle, so my green triangle. So we're going to rotate these points, but we are going to rotate them 90 degrees clockwise. So remember that the 90-degree rule is still XY changes to Y, opposite of X. So everybody change those now. A triple prime now, if I take -4, -4, I'm going to take my Y value of -4 and just flip it to the front. My X value of -4 needs to flip to the back, but it has to be changed to its opposite, so that becomes +4. For B triple prime, my Y value will move to the front, so it stays 1. My X value moves to the back, but it's going to change to its opposite, so it will be +2. And then for C triple prime, my Y value of -3 has to move to the front, and my X value of +1 has to be moved to the back, and it needs to be changed to its opposite, so it needs to be -1. Well, what you should notice when you do this is that those points end up back in the same place as our original triangle. And it makes sense because this was my last triangle, and if I rotated it one more time, it's going to match up with the original pre-image of A, B, and C.